what's going on, guys? It's your boy Big CJ, and today we are going to be doing the Mushroom Cup Ranked. Yes, I am very excited. I've been working on this video for weeks upon weeks, and I've been wanting to do this video for months upon months, but finally I have it and it is here. And let's just say that I think I'm pretty much proud of this video. Overall, we're going to go over all 8 games between Super Mario Kart, Mario Kart 64, Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario Kart DS, Mario Kart Wii, Mario Kart 7, and Mario Kart 8/Deluxe. We're not counting Tour because there's no Mushroom Cup there, and we're only counting the Mushroom Cup for this one. The way this is going to go is there will be, for 4 tracks, it will be rated 1 to 10, besides Super Mario Kart because there's 5, averaging between the 4 scores and given the rating. And based on the rating, that is how I will score each one. It will be by each track 1 to 10, and overall that will rate the cup. So the higher the number, the better. So if you do see some tracks that you think are lower or higher than they should be, comment down below, let me know what you guys think. And if you haven't already, and if you are supporting the channel, please consider subscribing. I would very much appreciate it. Leave a like if you want more. I'm willing to do a flower cup. Let's get ready with the list. Here we go. Coming in last place is going to be Super Mario Kart's Mushroom Cup. Now, I mean, let's be for real, this was kind of obvious. Super Mario Kart is probably, for most of these videos, guys, it is probably going to most likely be last. It's a very outdated game. It has a lot of the same themes, and it's all 2D. It's going to be very boring. Now, obviously, we can go over the tracks. The first track we have is Mario Circuit 1. Obviously, this is the first ever Mario Kart track ever. Now, there's not much to it. It's kind of just a little bit of a loop. You go 4 different directions. You can see on the bottom of the screen and what the map basically looks like. It is what it is, but it is a very bland track. There isn't much to it. The only thing about it is really the pipes and then the one area with the question mark blocks. That's really it. Just a few turns. So in this one, I put it as a 2 out of 10. Our second track in the Mushroom Cup is Donut Plains 1, and I will say this one isn't a lot better, but it definitely is a little bit better. My thing with this track is the bridge you get to go over, the sharp turns. I think it's kind of interesting, but it is Donut Plains 1, so it isn't extremely interesting. It is the most basic one. So for that, I am going to give this one a 3 out of 10, a little above Mario Circuit 1. The third track we have for the Mushroom Cup is Ghost Valley 1. Now, yes, obviously, there's going to be a lot of 1s in here, so don't be surprised when you see that. Ghost Valley 1 is, not going to lie, a lot more boring than the other ones. This one isn't really that great. Once again, just a few turns here and there. There is one jump that's kind of cool, and there is a bit of a shortcut that is very risky to take. But otherwise, it's just a big wooded area with a bunch of ghosts hanging around. The ghosts don't really do anything. So for that, I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 10. Our fourth track that we have in here is Bowser Castle 1. Now, I will say this is okay of a track, but also another pretty boring track. Nothing too crazy about it. My thing with this track that I like is, I mean, there is a bit of the straight part, there is the hops you get to go over, and there is the thwomps, but overall there isn't really much to this track as well. Not too many obstacles. I mean, the thwomps do bring a bit of a challenge, though the hops can be kind of difficult sometimes, but otherwise it's just kind of turning left and right. You just go left, right, not much to it. So for this one, I am going to give it a 3 out of 10. The final track in the Mushroom Cup for Super Mario Kart is Mario Circuit 2. Now, just to let you guys know that this is the only game that has 5 tracks in it. So the rest of these have 4. Now, for this, Mario Circuit 2, not too great of a track, but I will say is the best track in this game. The main reason is the huge hop you have at the end of the course. It is a really cool hop. You gotta give credit to Nintendo. I do like that little interesting part. It is still Mario Circuit, there isn't much more to it, but I do think that them trying something different with the same concept, because they didn't have a high amount of options that they had for Super Mario Kart because of the limited hardware. Now, I think it's impressive. So for that, Mario Circuit 2 is going to get a 4 out of 10. Pretty decent. Overall, for this, the rating for the entire Mushroom Cup of Super Mario Circuit is a 2.8 out of 10. It's a very low rating, but we will see better ones. So let's get to those. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Mario Kart Super Circuit. Now, this one has a pretty weak Mushroom Cup as well. Not as weak as Super Mario Kart, however, it is still a pretty weak Mushroom Cup. So let's get to them. The first track we have on Super Circuit is Peach's Circuit. Now, Peach Circuit is kind of a very boring and bland first track. One of my least favorite first tracks from the Mario Kart series. It's not horrible, but it definitely is very, very low rating, and that's mainly because there's absolutely nothing on the track. It is a flat course because it's Super Circuit, but it's not only just that, there's no theme to it. It's a basic grass theme. There's the castle, and that's kind of cool, and there's some trees here and there, but there's nothing on the track that makes it really cool. The only thing about the track that even gets it above a 1 is the turns. So, for this one, I'm giving it a 2 out of 10. The second track we have in Super Circuit for the Mushroom Cup is Shy Guy Beach, and I will say this is actually a bit of an improvement. Now, this is one of the worst tracks in Mario Kart Wii, retro-wise, but the original version is actually not that bad. There's not as much bumpy features, it doesn't look as gross. It's not outstanding, it's definitely not the best track in here, but I will say, it definitely isn't terrible either. I love the little island hop and the crabs do get in the way. You get the little hops here and there. I think it's kind of cool, as well as the Shy Guy shooting cannons at you. Obviously the pirates. So overall, I'd give this one a 4 out of 10. The third track we have is Riverside Park for the Mushroom Cup. This track is also a decent track. Not too many things added to the track. My thing about this track I really like is more of the track itself. I do like the water that's around. I like the big spin where you jump off and have the huge boost. There's actually 2 boosts in this track. It's very cool. Overall, it's a nice looking track, but there isn't much obstacles in the way, and it's not the most interesting track in the world. So I will be giving this one also a 4 out of 10. The final track we have for Mario Kart Super Circuit's Mushroom Cup is Bowser Castle 1. Now, definitely not the most interesting Bowser Castle in this game. There's a lot of Bowser Castles in this one as well, but it's not a bad course. It's not terrible. The thwomps come here and there. You have the hops. It's very similar to the Super Mario Kart version, but I do think the music on this one's a little bit better. Either way, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. Now that concludes all the courses in this, and overall my rating for this is a 3.5 out of 10. Obviously Peach Circuit lowering it down, and the rest were 4s, so it does bring it to a 3.5 out of 10. Not a good score, but definitely an improvement over Super Mario Kart. So let's get on to the next one. Mario Kart 7! Coming in at number 6 is going to be Mario Kart 7. Now I know Mario Kart 7 has some actually pretty strong cups in this game. Their Mushroom Cup is definitely one of their weaker ones. There's just not a lot of interesting tracks about this, but it does get number 6, so let's get to the first track. The first track in Mario Kart 7's Mushroom Cup is Toad Circuit, and let's just say this is a very, very boring track, one of the worst tracks in the game. Mario Kart 7 has this thing where they could do really good tracks, but also make really bad tracks at the same time. And Toad Circuit is definitely in that exception of bad tracks. It's just a very bland and boring track. And I understand it's the first track, but it's not anything at all interesting to make this a cool first track. And for that, I want to give this one a 2 out of 10. The second track for this cup is Daisy Hills, and I'll just say this is a much bigger of an upgrade. Daisy Hills is actually a pretty decent track. Not the best Daisy track of all time, but Daisy Hills is actually a pretty decent track. With the huge gliding part, you had the windmills while you're gliding, the nice city view, going on the bridges. It's very cool. Not the best track of all time, but definitely a middle of the range track. And for that, I want to give it a 5 out of 10. The third track in this cup is Cheep Cheep Lagoon, and let's just say that this is one of the most boring and one of the worst tracks in Mario Kart history. And the reason why is that this is an introduction track to the underwater effect. Now I get it, it does help the underwater effect and make you understand the underwater effects better, but once you know it, it's kind of pointless. It's a very boring track. Now you get to do the boost off, and you do get to go on the little narrow ways to go up the underwater part. I don't even know how to explain it. But overall, this is a really, really boring track. And because of that, I'm going to actually give this one a 1 out of 10. Very bad track. And the final track we have for Mario Kart 7's Mushroom Cup actually ends off pretty well, and that is Shy Guy Bazaar. And I will say, yes, not the greatest track of all time, not the greatest way to end off, but it is a really good desert track. I do like the twists and turns they have. I love the music. I love the theme to it. I don't know. It's a very good theme. And I think it's one of these underrated tracks. And I know it's not a top tier track, but it definitely is a really good track. And in my opinion, I actually want to give this a 6 out of 10. Now that lists off all the tracks from Mario Kart 7. Mario Kart 7 is kind of here and there, just more better, more worse than Mario Super Circuit. But overall, it is also a 3.5 out of 10. Now, I did put this one over. The reason why I put this one over, I gave the little advantage to Mario Kart 7 is because I think there's better ones here. And even though the ones that are worse, the better ones kind of stand out a bit more than Mario Kart Super Circuits. So I want to give this one to Mario Kart 7 over Super Circuit. Let's head to number 5. Here we go! Coming in at number 5 is going to be Mario Kart DS. Yes, Mario Kart DS bringing in a much better roster than Mario Kart 7 and the rest of them. There's a lot of downs on this, but there's actually really high ups. And unlike Mario Kart 7, the ups are actually much better ups than there were in Mario Kart 7. So, let's get to them. Starting with the downs, the first track we have is Figure 8 Circuit. Yes. This is one of the worst tracks in Mario Kart history. I just gotta say it straight up. This track is terrible. It's just it's just an 8 loop, but unlike other 8 loops, it is a flat, boring, no obstacles in the way kind of course, and all you're doing is just slowly turning. There's not much to this track at all. It is any basic racetrack in any basic game. It's really boring. There's no good theme to this. So for that, I'm actually gonna give this a 1 out of 10. The second track from Mario Kart DS's Mushroom Cup is going to be Yoshi Falls, another very boring track. This one not as boring, but it is a very depressing track for Yoshi. Not much to this track. It's a really short track, like an incredibly short track, and the only thing to this is either you pick the bridge on the left side, or you take the risk and go for the waterfall, which is the shorter route. That's really it. There's not much to it, and unlike the Wii version, you can't do boost, so that one section, you can't do boost at all. Or ramp off. So for that, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10. Another terrible track. The third track for Mario Kart DS's Mushroom Cup is going to be Cheep Cheep Beach, and unlike Cheep Cheep Lagoon, this is actually a very good course. It's an above average course, not the best course in the world once again, but Cheep Cheep Beach actually brings a lot to it. I do like the little ramp you go onto the beach. I like the little underwater section where you're trying to avoid it, but you can go in it. If you have mushrooms, you can go for the shortcut. It's a nice pretty track. And unlike Cheep Cheep Lagoon, it doesn't bore you with the underwater part. It's a lot more optional, which I do like in this track. The Cheep Cheeps can also get in the way. And yeah, so for that, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Now we're talking. Coming in for the final track of the Mushroom Cup of Mario Kart DS is Luigi's Mansion. One of the best tracks in this game. It is a outstanding track. Now, Luigi's Mansion came out a few years before this, and they decided to make a Luigi's Mansion track. And what I love about this track is, first off, you get to go inside the mansion, which is really cool. Then you go outside, avoid this little graveyard part, and then finally get through this muddy area while a bunch of trees are moving around. It's a really spooky theme. It's got a really good theme song, and it just fits Luigi very well. My only thing about this track though, the mud does look a little weird. It's a really good track. And for that, I'm actually going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Now that wraps up Mario Kart DS's tracks. Overall, because of Luigi's Mansion, huge bump up. I'm going to give this overall a 4.5 out of 10. A much bigger upgrade to Mario Kart 7. Obviously that is below 5, but to remind you that these tracks are all going to be low and high, so the average is going to be around 5. So if you do see above 5, that is most definitely a really good cup. Just to make that straight there, let's move on to number 4. Coming in at number 4 is actually going to be Mario Kart Double Dash. Mario Kart Double Dash actually has a very decent Mushroom Cup, and it's not even much very standout cup, especially in this game, but I will say it is a very decent Mushroom Cup, a good way to start out the cup. So let's get to the tracks. The first track in the Mushroom Cup for Mario Kart Double Dash is going to be Luigi Circuit, and actually, unlike other Luigi circuits, this is actually a pretty decent Luigi circuit. Now, yes, pretty basic itself, but my thing I like about this track a lot, first off, is the chain chomps. I like the little speed boost you have when you jump off the 2 ramps, the little corner ramps where you get to go on the side if you want to do that. But my favorite thing about this track is when you go on the other side, if you are so ahead or so behind someone, you actually will pass by other racers, which I don't think has been done at that point in Mario Kart history. So it's kind of cool that you could just kind of jump an 8th place player or try to hit the 1st place player in last if you want. I think it's really cool, and for that, I'm actually going to give this one a 4 out of 10. A very impressive first track. The second track we have in Mario Kart Double Dash's Mushroom Cup is Peach Beach, and I will say it's a very decent track. The big part about this track is obviously the beach. What I love about it is the little cataquacks that try to attack you while you're on the beach, and you have to avoid them at all costs. You also have the risk of the water coming in up and down, and you kind of have to take the risk of either wanting to take the shortcut when the tide is low, or you have to go around when the tide is high. Kind of up to you. It makes the risk, and I think it's really interesting, especially for a second track in the Mushroom Cup of all things. It can turn the tides in any point, and that makes it really cool. So for it, I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. Third track we have for the Mushroom Cup is going to be Baby Park, and I will say this track is one of the few tracks where I actually have multiple ratings for this one, and it's kind of like this. It with the 50cc is kind of boring, and that's a low rating. For 100cc, a little better, but not the greatest. And other Mario Karts, it's kind of lower too. But if we're talking about 150 Baby Park and Mario Kart Double Dash, it is one of the greatest tracks of all time. And the reason for that is because of the item system in Mario Kart Double Dash. You see, Mario Kart Double Dash is really crazy because it has double items, it has specific items to specific players, and items that are never seen in other games because of certain players. And because of that, it makes it incredibly chaotic and really fun. You could be in first place on the last lap and instantly become last place because of how quickly you can get hit by something. So for that, I'm going to actually give this one a 9 out of 10. This is for 150cc, by the way. This is its best version. The final track we have for the Mushroom Cup is Dry Desert. Let me just say, an incredibly disappointing ending to the Mushroom Cup. Dry Desert is honestly one of the worst desert tracks. Not the worst, but one of the worst. And my reason for that is the music's kind of boring. It's a very basic desert theme. And yes, there's the tornado, there's the little quicksand part that you go into in the middle. But there's not a lot interesting about this track. It's kind of a bland track, and compared to most Double Dash tracks, it's kind of boring. So for that, I'm actually going to give this one a 2 out of 10. Now overall, Mario Kart Double Dash did a bit better than Mario Kart DS, and for that, I actually gave it a 5 out of 10. It had a good high, a good low, or bad low, and some ones in the middle, and that kind of equaled it to become 5 out of 10. But there is better ones there. Let's get to number 3.
Mario Kart 8!
Coming in at number 3 is actually going to be Mario Kart 8 or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Now Mario Kart 8's tracks do look very pretty. Although I do think some of them aren't the best in the world, I do think Mushroom Cup and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is actually pretty decent, or pretty good if you want to say. And yeah, so a lot of these are pretty mid tracks. There's some good ones here, not as good ones, but yeah, let's go over them. The first track we have for Mario Kart 8 is going to be Mario Kart Stadium. Now, Mario Kart Stadium isn't the worst intro track, but it definitely isn't the best. It's a pretty decent one. There isn't much crazy to it, but it does introduce the anti-gravity, which I do think is kind of cool. The crowd is kind of cool. The music's alright. It's a pretty decent track, and for that, I'm actually going to give this one a 4 out of 10. Next up, we have Water Park. Now, I don't know for Mario Kart 8 this is to introduce the water section or what it is, but if it is, this is a much better way to do it. Now, it's not the best water track in this game, but it is a decent track. I love the little theme park theme to it, while also bringing the underwater theme to it. My thing with this track, though, is there's not a lot interesting about this track. It's still a pretty basic track on itself, but it's a pretty decent track, and for that, I am going to give this one a 4 out of 10 as well. The third track we have for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Mushroom Cup is Sweet Sweet Canyon, and I will say that I will believe and always believe that the theme is kind of what carries this track. The track itself is alright. I do like the cannon shoot, the going around the cake and having the ice cream cones. The ending's kind of boring, however. I'm not a huge fan of that. I do like the donut shortcut, but my thing about this track is all the candy and sweet themes about this track. The syrup is a little weird to go into. I've always found that weird that you're going inside syrup. But for this track, I will give it a little bit higher because I do like the theme a lot. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. And finally, the final track we have is Thwomp Ruins. This is actually a really good track, and I will say this is the best track, and they save it best for last. The Thwomp theme is really pretty, the music is really nice. I love the stone and all the artifacts that are around it. I love the little hallway that you go down where you can either go on the side or take the shorter way, but take the risk of having the rolly things attack you. I also like the section with the Thwomps where you have multiple directions to pick. You can even pick a gliding section if you choose to. And then I also like the end in part 2. I do like that little shortcut as well as the gliding at the end. It's a really good track, a very underrated track if that. And for that, I'm actually going to give this one a 8 out of 10. It's a very impressive track. Now, that goes over all of the Mushroom Cups in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's a very decent pack. All of them are about 4 or above, but none of them are excellent besides Thwomp Ruins. And for that, it only goes slightly above Mario Kart Double Dash with a rating of 5.25 out of 10. Now, above average, obviously, but not the best one. There is 2 others that I do think are better than this. Let's get to number 2. Coming in at number 2 is going to be... Wait, Mario Kart Wii, really? Yes, Mario Kart Wii is actually number 2. Now, Mario Kart Wii actually has some of the best tracks in Mario Kart history. But for this case, I'm actually going to give Mario Kart Wii number 2 because there is one that I actually think did really well with their Mushroom Cup, and it's a very underrated part. Now, Mario Kart Wii has absolutely outstanding tracks, like I said. I know the graphics aren't the best, but made absolutely fantastic tracks. This is my first ever Mario Kart. I do love this game to heart, but I will say, yes, there are some good tracks in Mario Kart Wii. It isn't my favorite Mushroom Cup. It does take number 2 though. So let's go over why this is number 2. The first track in Mario Kart Wii's Mushroom Cup is going to be Luigi's Circuit. Now, unlike the Double Dashes version, this is a much worse version. It's not the worst started track of all time, but it's a very bland one, especially for Mario Kart Wii at that too. The only parts I really like about this track, to be honest with you, is the Luigi statue and then how the head can turn to a Mii sometimes, and the little boost at the end. But once again, I think Luigi's Circuit on Double Dash was a much better version. I think there's some other versions that are better. Now, once again, this isn't the worst version, but it is a very worn version, one of the worst tracks in Mario Kart Wii, and because of that, I'm actually going to give this track a 2 out of 10, a very weak start for Mario Kart Wii. Now, the second track we have for Mario Kart Wii is Moo Moo Meadows. Now, I do really like the Mario Kart 8 version because they made that track look really pretty, but for some reason in this game, it doesn't look as good, and I'm not a big fan of this one as much as the Mario Kart 8 one. With the Mario Kart 8 one, the mole spots are actually little speed boosts, but in this one, they're actually something that slows you down. The cool part about this track, I guess, is the cows. I do kind of like that. Obviously, the moles are there too, but this one isn't really... There isn't really as much for this one as the Mario Kart 8 one, as I said before. The Mario Kart 8 remake, I think, was a much better version, but that doesn't make this track a bad track. It's still a very decent track at that, and for that, I'm actually going to give this one a 4 out of 10. A very decent track. Now, the third track we have is going to be Mushroom Gorge. Now, it only goes up from here. Mushroom Gorge is a much better track than the other two. My thing with Mushroom Gorge, I love the bouncing mushrooms on this track. It's a very unique idea, and I think a very unique theme. There's also a lot of crazy cool shortcuts. I do really like the shortcuts. I do really like the mushrooms. However, I do think this track is a little overrated. I think people overhype this one a little too much. Maybe it might be Mario Kart or like Nintendo itself, but I do think this one is a little overrated. I think it's been used a lot of times, and it is really cool. I do get excited, don't get me wrong. It's still a great track, but I don't think it's like a top 5 track. It definitely is up in the top 10, but not top 5. Once again, love the mushrooms. They're very cool, but they also can be a pain in the... And for that, I'm actually going to give this one a 7 out of 10. Very impressive for Mushroom Gorge. Now, if you thought Mushroom Gorge was actually the best track in the Mushroom Cup, you are wrong. My favorite one from this is actually Toad's Factory. One of the most underrated tracks. We went from one of the most overrated to one of the most underrated. This track has never been remade, and I think it's a tragedy. Toad's Factory is one of the best tracks made in Mario Kart history. It's a very, very good track. First off, you have the beginning with the conveyor belts where you have to dodge these things stopping you. Then you have the little conveyor belts where you jump and they have the little cranes moving side to side. You have to avoid the boxes at all costs while also having the dodging platforms move along. Then you have the part where you turn and you have two conveyor belts, one facing towards you, one facing away from you, and your whole goal is you want to go to the one towards you, unless if you have like a mushroom or something and it can take it, the one away from you, more on the inside. That actually is a faster way to do it. The final thing about this track is the little boost at the end, as well as the muddy part where you have to try to get to the boost in time, but there's a chance you can miss it. There's going to be one on the left side or the right side. Now, hearing that, guys, just telling you that there's a lot to this track. It's a very, very good track. And for that, I'm going to give this one actually a 9 out of 10. Now, that ends Mario Kart Wii's. I will say it started bad and then ended really, really well. And for that, I'm going to give this one a 5.5 out of 10. I think Luigi Circuit definitely dropped this one a little bit lower, but overall, it is still the second best. It's a really good Mushroom Cup, but there is one more that is better, and we need to go over it right now. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Mario Kart.
Now, I know what you're wondering. How did Mario Kart 64 get #1 of all games? Now, I will say Mario Kart 64 is a good game. It is definitely one of the lower half games. And I will say there's a lot of bad cups in this game. But for some reason, Mario Kart 64's Mushroom Cup is absolutely outstanding. I don't know why they made this cup so good, but I honestly think this is their best cup. It's weird, but I will say I love this cup a lot. It's very underrated, and although not every track is amazing, you gotta give credit that this Mushroom Cup was actually their best. Normally it's a flower, star, or special, but this is the only game to me where the Mushroom Cup stands out compared to the rest. And let's go over that. Let's go over why. Let's get to that first track. Now, this first track is not the reason why. This is Luigi's Raceway. Yes, it is not the best Luigi starting track, or in fact, one of the best starting tracks. There are some better ones, Double Dash Luigi Circuit, Mario Kart Stadium, but it isn't the worst one either. I think it's better than Wii's Luigi Circuit, the GBA's, Super Mario Kart. I think it does the job for a first track. It does introduce you pretty well. It is a little bit of like just an 8. It's not a figure 8 like DS's terrible one. This is actually it's a bit Luigi themed, not too Luigi themed, but I do kind of like it. The music starting off was pretty cool. I like the little balloon where you could get the specific item. I really like that. And I do like the little like cave you go inside. It's not, once again, not the best track in the world. I'm going to actually give it a 3 out of 10. Decent track, but not the best one. The second track we have in this cup is Moo Moo Farm. Now, no, this is not the reason why this is #1. Moo Moo Farm and Moo Moo Meadows to me are kind of a tie. Normally people debate of which one's better based on their home game, and I know a lot of people say Moo Moo Meadows, but to me, there isn't much of a difference. I kind of think Moo Moo Meadows is like just as good. The only thing about this track is there's not really any cows. They're just kind of in the background. But in replacement of that, there's actually a lot of moles, and the reason why I like this track so much is the moles. The moles make it really difficult. You want to take the inside of the track, but there's the risk of the moles, and if you get hit by the mole, it does damage to you. It is not a simple thing to get over, so you kind of have to take the risk of either wanting to do it or not wanting to do it. Now, besides the moles, there isn't really much to it, but once again, it is a basic track, and I do like the song. It's cool. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. Maybe a little high rated, but I do think that this isn't like a bad track. It's not a hateable track, so I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. The next track we have is Koopa Troopa Beach. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, this is an alright track. To me, I think this is one of the best tracks in Mario Kart 64. My reason, I think it's a much better beach version than most of the tracks out there. This is one of my favorite beach tracks. I love the little ramps that you get to jump off. I love the huge shortcut that you go around. The music is absolutely outstanding. The water where you get to decide whether you go and take the risk inside or you don't. The trees that are in the way, the little Koopa stones around that have the Koopa shape. A lot about this track I really like, and I know this is not a lot of people's favorite. This is one of my favorite, and for that, I know this might be a little high for you guys, but I'm going to give this one actually a 9 out of 10. There's a lot to this track I really like. A lot. Even the crabs are interesting. Even the crabs. So I'm giving this one a 9 out of 10. Not a perfect track, but an outstanding track. The final track we have for Mario Kart 64's Mushroom Cup is my favorite one, Calamari Desert. Calamari Desert, yes, I know it is a circle. It's not the best track layout, but the thing about this track, first off, the music is outstanding. Secondly, the train. Now, the train makes this track really interesting because you take a lot of risk of whether you go past the train and risk it or you don't, because you could get hit by that train very easily. And I kind of like it for this one specifically. Mario Kart 7's to me kind of bores me out because it doesn't time it right. Where Mario Kart 64's, I feel like it does it really well, where it times well enough to the point that most of the time it gets in your way. And I really like that because it makes it a huge obstacle in this course. Now, yes, I know the track layout isn't the best in the world, but I do think Calamari Desert is one of the best tracks in Mario Kart 64. And honestly, whenever it's remade, I'm pretty happy with it too. I love the little adventures you can go inside the train too. Now, I know it doesn't really help your progress, but really cool track overall. I think it's an outstanding track, and it's probably my favorite track in Mario Kart 64. And for that, I'm going to give this one as well a 9 out of 10. I can't give it perfect because, yes, the track layout isn't the #1 best, and that's the reason why it's not 10 out of 10. Because otherwise, I think it's up there. It's a really good track, especially for Mario Kart 64 standards. Now, that wraps up Mario Kart 64's tracks. I know you're thinking that the beginning was kind of low, so how is this one doing so well? Well, the rating for this one is actually a 6.25 out of 10. Now, especially compared to the others, this is the best Mushroom Cup in Mario Kart history, at least in my opinion. Now, I know there's going to be other opinions, but to me, Mario Kart 64, I think, has its best. Well, guys, we've made it through. Yes, a very long process, but we have finally made it through all tracks, all courses, all cups for the Mushroom Cup to see which one was worth the best. Yes, I picked Mario 64. I don't know if that's everyone's opinion on it. I know a lot of people would pick the Wii, but I did put the Wii a little bit lower because, honestly, I thought 64's was really good, so I put 64's a bit above. Once again, guys, if you did enjoy this and want to see more cup videos, let me know down below, comment down below. If you did like this video, once again, please leave a like. I would really appreciate it. Love to know the feedback of what you guys think of these kind of videos. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, and peace out. Bye.